One of the most important tools for the dwarves is an anvil. Anvils are used to forge weapons of mass destruction and tools to create the fortresses that they live in. But there's such mystery surrounding the anvil, because it requires an anvil to create an anvil. So, that begs the question. While I may not have an answer to that particular question, I do have some theories. But first, a history lesson. What created the first anvil? Anvils are required to build forges, whether conventional or magma-powered, since at least one is absolutely required if a fortress intends to do any metalworking whatsoever, and the only way to make an anvil is with a metalsmith's forge, whether from a strange mood or by normal means. Your first anvil must be sourced from outside your colony, either at embark or through later trading. Anvils require 3 metal bars to be smithed at a forge, once you have one to begin with. As this is recursive, the origins of the first anvil are hard to discern. Over the years of dwarven history, many theories have occurred. One such theory of the anvil's origin is that a dwarf struck by a strange mood made one of stone or bone. Though this isn't actually possible in-game, another more radical theory put forward by a dwarven philosopher Eurist McTaggart is that the first one was made of wood. In a similar manner, this was deemed a heresy, and he was later sentenced to be hammered for being an elf sympathizer by an angry mayor who had a strange fondness for glass. It is generally accepted that humans first created the plow, and oral histories record that the first accomplishment of the elves was the domestication of forest animals. There are questions regarding the implications of this revelation. However, skeptics question how the anvil was created without a hammer, how the metal was shaped, and what social or cultural environmental pressures could have required the invention of what is. When reduced to its most basic nature, a flat surface used to position objects scheduled to be struck repeatedly. Dwarven scholars suggest that the first anvils were made of stone and not metal, and were a little more than flattened stone blocks chipped from flint or obsidian. Others suggest they may have been thrones. This possibility sparked an interest among dwarven scholars, attempting to recreate anvil replicas, but such enterprises are generally regarded with indifference by dwarven society at large. Of course, this is relating to an ancient bug from 2014, which was fixed in 2014 in version 0.40.01, where anvils in forges in World Gen are thrones. Essentially, if you were playing adventure mode or if you were to reclaim a fortress, instead of having anvils in the forges, they would have thrones, and they would act as anvils. So this is a serious theory. However, since it's been removed and fixed and resolved, it is now simply a myth from the past of previous versions of the game. Regardless of dwarven theories, some humans believe that it must have been early technologies to produce an anvil without the usage of a hammer or anvil. While improving the production of anvils through dissemination and use of anvils over centuries, the original method was forgotten. Dwarven philosophers argue that the technology has always been driven by perfection from the beginning and nothing was developed over time. Besides, dwarven history never forgets. And this brings us to a very complicated subject. Correlation implies causation. An anvil is required, of course, to make an anvil. One researcher posits that anvils originate from the first anvil. Where does it come from? The first anvil, of course. It's anvils, all the way down. Other theories include the Great Anvil, a hypothesis claiming that there exists a great anvil who rises out of the furnace that he thinks is the most sincere. He rises from said furnace and flies through the air with his bag of anvils for all the dwarves. Ancient dwarven theorists believe that the answer is yes. Dwarven philosopher Eurist McStotel has recently suggested that the existence of anvils is evidence that dwarven civilization will eventually develop a method of visiting, or, at the very least, sending anvils to the past. A related conjecture poses that if time is cyclical, the last anvil could be the first anvil, and this could also explain the first hammer and the first dwarf, etc. However, no evidence has yet been provided to support this hypothesis. One of the final theories is that dwarves did not create the anvil, rather the anvil was created the dwarves. A naked, starving, primitive proto-dwarf discovers a naturally occurring anvil. Its mind roars with vision and prosperity. And this is the beginning of civilization. This leads to the conclusion of the existence of the dwarf civilization and is a method of anvil reproduction. Eurus McDawkins penned a book, The Selfish Anvil, on this topic. I believe that this would imply proto-dwarves, and having never seen a proto-dwarf myself, I find this to be a difficult theory to grasp. My personal favorite theory is more realist hypothesis holds that dwarves pre-existed anvils. This proposal, a naturally occurring anvil, formed in the caldera of an active volcano, Mount Mood, which was experiencing a fey mood. When the medium-sized glob and a small glob of non-magma-safe metal were coughed up by a small eruption, landing close enough to the magma pool to form a natural anvil and a natural hammer, which they called Usurathtir, the first anvil, and Ustarath Stodir, the first safe hammer of volcanoes. However, after Eurus McBlacksmith incurred an unfortunate smelting accident due to stray pyroclastic projectile, her daughter, Eurus McBlacksmith 2.0, entered a fey mood and forged the first portable anvil, Eurus Smithstonstier, the first free anvil, from the fires of Mount Mood. The preceding autumn, a trading expedition was launched. During the blacksmiths transported Euristadstodir and Euristansundir to every dwarven settlement on their continent, loaning the hammer and anvil out to each during the lengthy process of trade goods loading. Because of this tour allowed each fort to create their own anvil and hammer, and it became Nolsuntir Grondalansuntir Zuntir. Hammer Anvil, the legendary Untenmil hammer profilation of anvils. An alternate, more dwarf-centric version of the story holds nature no role. Urthranzuntir and Yuthranzuntir were the same anvil. Eurus Blacksmith carved out a shape of an anvil and hammer into two obsidian calendra, and then repeatedly checked the spot after eruptions, until finally, one day, the liquid metal settled into the mold. If this is true, then somewhere there must be a unique anvil made from a unique alloy, and a hammer made of matching stuff. However, these artifacts remain to be discovered. After listening to these tales from dwarves of old, how do you believe the first anvil was created? Was it from some mythical means of an ancient god long forgotten? Or a dwarven mood, now no longer remembered, from some ancient dwarf in the times before history? You decide. I'd love to hear your responses in the comments section. Breaking kayfabe for a second here, I just want to say thank you very much for watching this video. If you would like to recommend another topic for me to cover in one of these videos, it's mostly just me reading the wiki after all, feel free to leave one in the comments section. I've been enjoying making these. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. If you'd like to get in these credits, it's $2 on Patreon, by the way. Thanks for watching.